Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Fired Up Friday. So glad to have my friend Tiff here with me today so we can chop it up. I love talking politics with her, and she and I both have had kind of crazy days. So sorry about the mix up on the times and things, but we're here now and we're going to get started. I don't have a real strict agenda of topics for us today. I thought we'd just kind of cover some things like I said, I feel like talking with Tiff is kind of the kind of conversation I used to have with my mom and my uncle. I'd go over on Saturday mornings and we just kind of talk about our life, and politics were always a part of it because I just don't understand these people. I don't do politics or whatever, but politics is always doing us, no matter where you are. So, Tiff, I told you a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and we can dive in wherever. But I see we're seeing more and more of Kamala Harris, and I am loving it. My daughter, who don't do politics, actually asked me today about something. She said, "Well, talk about are you going to talk about her?" I said, "Yeah, we'll bring her up." And then also, of course, our president picking up a fight with the Pope, insane, and really kind of throwing his VP under the bus while he's doing it. So,
It's just been so much craziness. I swear the last week has been so much. Let's just start from Friday, because Friday it was the Swalwell craziness, right?
oh, yes.
Like, that was exposed on Friday. Then we went through the whole weekend about people saying they didn't trust the people that were saying it. They thought it was Roger Stone. And I will say that Democrats have definitely fallen down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, right? I think we can all agree that that is something that we are seeing more and more of. We used to laugh at MAGA because they used to have all these conspiracy theories, but now, because we are all on edge and we all have come to the point of not believing what people are saying because they always think that there's something nefarious behind it, is that this is where we are. So people were not believing that there were women who were telling the truth about this, or that why would you put that out there? They're anonymous. The Roger Stone got some tea, and guess what? Roger Stone, that's who he is. He's gonna spread it, and he's gonna know. CNN has quite a few people that work for that network that could easily have told them that this story was coming out, because a lot of people knew that the story was possibly coming out this week, or last week. So I just feel like Democrats have definitely fallen down that rabbit hole. And then, obviously he resigned, and then he left the race, then he resigned from Congress. And that was a lot last weekend. It was a heavy weekend.
It really, really was. And I'm glad you mentioned like falling down that conspiracy rabbit hole because, I travel down it not too far occasionally because this is just the moment that we're in. And I think because so many unbelievable things have happened, and we have such crazy people in charge, like really a lot of things that 2 decades ago would have seemed far-fetched are really not at this time. So I get that people want to travel down it a little. As I said, sometimes I go down, but I'm always, kind of conscious that's what I'm doing because, sometimes they start and it's not because they're not true. They just are really kind of, crazy. I got one. I may share it on the Melania of it all. Her coming out
Yeah.
in the middle.
We all have some kind of thing in our brain that yes, somebody is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or you're trying to connect the dots on who is who is doing this, so then how is it connected to that person? So we all fall down it. But I think that situation right there with the Eric Swalwell thing is that there were four women who had similar stories, and the media is not, while the media sometimes is terrible and we complain about them, when they put out a story, they do the back work
The due
to make
diligence.
it's valid. And so the fact that people were like, I the minute I read that story, I was like, my jaw dropped, because I'm like, wow, this sounds like way all too familiar, for one. And two, it wasn't surprising to me because I have met Eric Swalwell before. No, he didn't do anything to negative to me, but I could just tell, but something was off. You know how you meet somebody,
Your spidey senses kind of kicked in, and
like something is not right, because first of all, when I meet people, when I meet politicians, usually politicians are very friendly, and they're just like, they're talkative, and they just have a demeanor about them that most people don't, that most average people don't. It's kind of comes with the job. So he was very mild mannered, but it was something about him that never felt right to me in that moment. And I think I had talked to one of my friends about it when I left. I was like, I don't know about that dude. And so then to hear all of these things that were coming out, I was like, yeah, see, that's why you should always follow your instincts, because something told me. And even when he announced, I didn't jump on it. I was just like,
yeah. I wasn't happy either. I'm not in California, but I just like, dude, kind of pick a lane and stay in. I just felt like it was ego driving a lot of
yeah.
that. And it didn't seem far-fetched to me too, because like I know men and I have worked.
Exactly. I don't think he's being a men basher, even though sometimes I can be, but I do think that we just I put nothing past any man at any time. And so,
And certain environments kind of foster certain types of behavior. Having been in the military, a field that is dominated by men, a lot of us are there. That kind of energy does exist. And I know that he was a military man. And, like the cheating part didn't surprise me at all. It's just, it's just that, again, goes with a lot of that military life and environment and behavior of men. There is still a lot of misogyny that exists in the military, and they're infusing, of course, more and more. But it's been there for a long time. It's part of the history of that organization. But I am glad that people are speaking out. I'm glad that he resigned. What I was a little disappointed by when you talk about rabbit holes or whatever, just responses, because I saw some independent media journalists who, I mean, they are journalists, not just influencers, that I respect, saying things like the Democrats should just ignore it and act like the Republicans and go, what? Hadn't heard that. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's good advice. Then I've heard people talking about literally like another journalist, former with the, big mainstream media network, saying things like, since the Republicans have just disregarded the law and everything, Democrats need to act the same way. And while I do agree that Democrats should fight fire with fire, that doesn't mean to become evil, to break the law. We don't have to become the thing that we're fighting to overcome it. And it just disturbed me a bit to hear these journalists, kind of putting that out there in the atmosphere, because a lot of people who are not as tuned in to politics and news as folks like you and I will pick up on that, and they will start parroting it and taking it on rather than using some critical thinking skills. So I was disappointed by that, and I am just glad that he resigned. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I agree with you that a lot of people were like, but MAGA, but Republicans do it. I'm like, we're not the Republicans, guys. Like, we're not them. We should hold people accountable for the things that they do. And if we are not the party of like just that dismisses assault allegations. We shouldn't be the party that is okay with a dude with a Nazi tattoo. We should be there should be standards. And we should not just say, let's say, forget the standards because we want to win an election. I'm sorry, but there's no coming back from that. There's no way you're coming back from that situation when we know that there is a race that is happening. And thankfully, this came out before we got to a general election, because if we got to the general election, this would have been 10 times worse, because now you're stuck with Swalwell and Steve Hilton, and people are going to be like, no, I don't want to vote for Swalwell. So now people have the opportunity to say, okay, well, he's gone. Let's pick someone else. Let's pick
Mhm.
someone else. There were 7 other Democrats running in.
Yeah, way too many. But I know that you and Zach and Kenny talked about it in your weekly live, and in my Good Trouble chat, my weekly Good Trouble chat. I have a lot of Californians who came in and talked about it, and they, think that Bassaro is the better candidate, certainly by experience and resume. However, he's been running an old school kind of campaign, so he didn't have the kind of um, social media
Right.
recognition that I feel like candidates need to have these days. If you're going to run for office, you're going to need some social media game. I'm glad that a lot of people, part of the folks that are part of K-Hive, who live out in that area and have enlisted help, are trying to, really raise his profile. So he seems to be climbing. Thank you, Catch My Whiff. I appreciate you guys. Give us some love, show us some hearts, help increase the algorithm here. And thank you guys for joining us, because we are live on YouTube, Substack, X, and Spoutable. So we're expanding our reach, and thank you for being here to support us, and feel free to join in the chat. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that he dropped out when he did, because those ballots, now have an opportunity to, be, to not have him in the mix. And he was the leading Democrat, and that would have been a fiasco.
It would have been absolutely a fiasco. And yes, Becerra is rising, and I credit that to the social media influencers and content creators who have been saying, like, this guy is the most experienced person in this race. He's done all these things. Why were people ignoring him all this time? Because guess what? A lot of Democrats like the flashy, shiny object that's in front of their face, the one that's the fighter. But some of these fighters also are problematic.
Yeah,
So
they got a lot of stuff in their closets.
yeah, they sure do. So this kind of, and I just think a lot of people weren't really paying attention to the race before this weekend. And sometimes things like this happen for reasons. And I think that I don't know that Becerra will win. I do know that he is rising in polling. He went from being at 5% to then being at 10%. He is moving up with the Democrats. And I do, like I said, credit that to social media for people using their platforms to be able to spread good, right? You should use your platform to spread for good. And I think we will see how social media will impact this race, because like I said, he was not somebody who was on social media, like having all these videos. And but the thing is, that if in the videos that I have watched, he talks so much about the things that that matter to them. Affordability, right? That is, he has the message. He didn't have the team to push the message, right?
He didn't have the reach. He didn't, and I feel like that goes back to a common problem for Democrats writ large, is that it's not their messaging or their policies, it's the distribution of that message
Right.
to reach the people. And I feel like that is, like I said, it's not just him, it's the Democratic Party writ large.
You said old school. We tried to run old school, like the old school way of running, which is great. That's like a wonderful thing. But when you're talking about a state like Texas, like California, which is humongous, right? You have to try to reach the most amount of people in a very short window. And I was so happy when I saw the polling yesterday that he is rising. I think he's a fantastic candidate. Even from beginning, people were asking me, who do I think is the best candidate? And I said him. Like, it was never secret.
Because you looked at his resume, the receipts. And this is what I have a problem with young people. I mean, I'm glad that they're getting involved in politics and taking an interest. But some of them, like I said, I think that they are being misguided by influencers and just the noise, and not the actual signals and the receipts, which takes us to the problematic candidate in Maine, which a lot of people are, supporting. Like, why would it be okay because you want to be against someone because of ageism? This woman has experience that he's running against, and he just got into the fight because, I don't know, he's shucking oysters, he's been in the military, big black water, and been problematic on Reddits and other places. But I don't know, I've changed. I declare I've changed. And now I want to be in Congress because I'm a fighter. Like, make it make sense. That's crazy. And I didn't know what this Nazi tattoo that I got in, where was it? I mean, a country rife with Nazism.
One of those European countries. It's just crazy.
Which is exactly, and then to go full circle with, I didn't know what it was, to then almost pounding his chest like, yeah, and so what? And then Democrats supporting him going, yeah, that it's like they're so quick to push things aside or ignore them for people they like. I mean, I literally was reading an article about him doing something, putting on like a trivia night or something like that, and part of his campaign events, and like older women that they were interviewing literally saying stuff like, well, I like him, I like his voice. Okay,
yeah, I actually read that interview, and I was like, this is so superficial. The man was interviewed, and they got some commentary from him, and he was saying the R word. Like, he has no clue.
Yes.
He has no resume. And the sad part is when you do the kind of the backstory on it, I think it's the New Yorker had a really good article and kind of profiled how he was recruited into that race. And
by one of those third party kind of
he was recruited by John Fetterman's team.
Oh,
yes, they saw him in a video. So he had done like a video about.
Well, I knew the people, but I didn't know.
Yes,
they were associated with John Fetterman. So it makes sense that he's very Fetterman-like.
Exactly. So all these things, we talk about putting the pieces together.
Yes,
we put the pieces together, and you start to see that maybe the people that were behind John Fetterman don't really have the best track record. These are the same people who are behind Ruben Gallego, who was running against Kerry Lake, who this week was being questioned about what he has in his closet. So you start to see kind of that things start to roll together. And unfortunately, I think Maine is going to have to make a tough decision on what they want to do. I don't even think this is a race where you have, like somebody like in Michigan, you have like El Said, who is like way far left. You have Mallory McMorrow, who's the progressive, she's like a progressive moderate type of candidate. She's new, young. You have her energy
with and experience.
Right. And then you have Hallie Stevens, who you're like, she's a centrist. Like, I don't know about this lady, right? So that is a different kind of fight to me than Maine. Maine has Janet Mills, who is extremely qualified, has a resume, but the people's beef against her is that she's too old.
Yeah, but she is the fighter that they're trying to attribute to Graham, because she is the one, when they were up in that White House briefing, I can't remember what it was, she was basically telling Trump, try it if you want to, see you in court. She did not back down. Like,
well, that was when that happened. So I see her as a fighter too, and I get it, the age thing. People don't want to have like people who are 75 or whatever age she is. I think she's 78. She's up there in Congress because we've had a lot of deaths and things like that. But that doesn't mean that you should settle for this guy who is, by all accounts, problematic. I mean, there's nothing that has come out that I'm like, man, we
Yeah.
should give this guy a pass.
I
There's
mean,
nothing.
sometimes
What if he get grace for the things that he's done? And
just
yet,
because he's young, you know, and she
and
is someone who is
he's speaking the language that they want to hear because they like those kinds of words. They like the fact that he's anti, Israel. They like all of these things. Mind you, the man was a mercenary. I mean, come on.
exactly.
You're anti-war, but you're also pro-mercenary guy. I don't put these things are not
It
working.
makes no sense. And people need to use their brain, you know, their critical thinking to understand that these things don't add up. And somebody over on Spoutable said, Rosie said, he'll be another one voting with the Republicans once he's in office. And it's true. I mean, like, you know,
I wouldn't doubt it because first of all, I don't trust people that don't have a true ideology. This is what I've always said about Fetterman. He doesn't have an ideology. His ideology is whatever he decides.
His finger up and see which way the wind is blowing.
Morning and thinks is the good thing. So this, the last couple months he's been pro-war. He's like gung-ho war guy. Before that, he was championing all kinds of social causes. He was trying to get a DSA endorsement way back when. Like, how do you go from getting one in a DSA endorsement to then now being like Trump's biatch in the Senate? Like, I don't understand how you go from one thing to another. Like, there's so much.
I don't like people like that in real life, and I certainly don't like it in politicians. Like, I mean, have some integrity about who you are. If you can be that easily swayed and moved by the wind with stuff, I don't trust you because, today you riding with me and tomorrow you might be stabbing me in my back. Like, I need to know where you stand.
I can't trust people like that. I hate wishy-washy people.
Yeah.
And he's like, John Fetterman is a trip because he goes on Fox News. That's his people over there. And I'm just sitting there like, what is even happening? And I think part of this too, and I think Catchman Wood says it, is I think the Janet Mills thing is also an anti-Schumer kind of thing. I think people are like, well, Schumer wants him bad, so let's be the opposite of what Schumer wants. But
and that's so childish. It's
really a smart strategy when you think about this. Like that is the part that really just trips me out because I'm like, what are we doing here? I just don't really understand people. And then you have, like we talked about before, like we were going to talk about the leftists who are now embracing Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, my head, that emoji where the head blown, exploding. When I read that comment about Ilhan Omar, of all people, like, lady, they are trying to deport you now. They are trying to say that your citizenship process was illegal, like some stuff wasn't right. And you want to embrace Marjorie Taylor Greene just because she right now is, talking smack about Trump, but her agenda hasn't changed. She is still who she is. They just don't like the person who they chose to carry out their agenda. And when we talk about, like Graham and the people supporting him and these other folks, there is one commonality I see, and it's just white men. Okay. Mm-hmm. And people need to remember that, white supremacy is part of the Democratic Party too. Like, it is not exclusive to Republicans. Like, that is a thing in this country. And I feel like part of that, the stuff that is happening, is also part of them trying to erase the literal loyal voting base of the Democratic Party. Like, they want to take it over, so.
No, absolutely. It's just it wasn't even just Ilhan Omar. It was David Hogg. Is like, hey, let's Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's kind of talking our language here. Let's give her a chance. Give her a chance to do what? I mean,
exactly. To stab us in the back when it really matters.
And Ro Khanna, who's on TV with her, and they're talking about they're gonna have, let's get this new populist movement going. And I'm just sitting there like, you mean the anti-black movement going? Because
Yeah,
that's the way I see it. That's how I do it.
exactly.
That you people have a commonality, and your commonality is that you don't like black people, you don't like Jewish people. You want you want a party that is free of identity politics and grievance. That's the way I look at it. And
Hmm.
they're like, we're going to talk about the economy. And my thing is that when I see people talking about, kind of the trajectory of where the party is going, I always have to kind of laugh because I just think that they're so delusional. Right. So I was listening to the El Said guy, and he's just bitching about Democrats. And he's like, talking about Obama, and he's talking about who else? He was saying something. Oh, Joe Biden, and he was saying about Bernie, that basically we shut out. Bernie was shut out in 2020 in 26. I'm like, no,
Oh, I'm so sick of hearing them cry over Bernie.
he lost because he couldn't talk to black people. This is a very easy thing to figure out. He lost because of that. So maybe, just maybe, we do things a little bit different. Like, you're not. People get mad at me when I compared them, because I was like, he's no Mamdani. Because one of the things that I've always said about Mamdani, which I appreciated about him, there are things that I get mad at him about, or have gotten mad at him about for things he said, or were, kind of bothered me, rubbed me the wrong way. What I did appreciate about him is that he never talked bad about the Democrats. He ran his race to win. He ran his race to talk about affordability. He ran his race to talk about the things that people in New York wanted. But you never heard him saying anything about how bad the Democrats are. The Democrats suck. When people asked him about Chuck Schumer, or they asked him about Hakeem Jeffries, who didn't endorse him right away, he never stooped to the level of saying, well, they suck, or they're not good people. He always said, listen, when they're ready to endorse, if they are going to endorse, then fine, but I want to work with them. And that's the kind of mentality that I want from my Democratic politicians. You don't have
Exactly.
to be in love with the Democratic Party. Listen, half the time I'm not in love with the Democratic Party, the Democratic establishment, whatever you want to call it. They piss me off too. They piss everybody off, right? But Republicans piss me off to a whole nother degree.
Because the Republicans are doing things to actually hurt us and harm us actively. And I appreciate that analogy that you gave, because I agree. Like, you can run and you can be very different from, what you consider the establishment Dems, but you don't have to bash them, because again, like, the policy and their platform is very progressive. And I just feel like when people are doing that, it's a cheap shot. Really, like, you don't have anything positive, you don't have anything of your own, so it's very easy. You can make yourself look better by bashing someone else, and to me, that's a cheap shot. Like, people do that in real life. You don't have to beat people up to make yourself look better.
Exactly. I just think it's a failed type of way of running. Bernie tried that and he lost. So
Mhm.
why don't you run on the things that you can talk about, the things that Democrats are not. Dallas, please. You are not. You can
Aw,
talk about the
Dallas.
things that the
Dallas
Democrats
said, "I agree."
are not very happy today. Let me go downstairs with her dad. The Democrats, there are things that somebody said to me. Well, Mamdani, the Democrat, they said something to the effect of like, well, Mamdani was mad at Schumer for the fact that he, was, I guess, I'm sorry, like he wasn't speaking about genocide or whatever it may be. And I said, listen, there are fair criticisms about Israel that can be brought up. We're not a monolith. We don't all agree on the same things. There are fair things that you can say about the Democratic Party, the Democratic elected officials. You don't like the fact that they take money from this person, or you don't like the fact that they take money from that person. But in the scheme of things, every candidate has to run their race to win. You have to figure out a way to win. And if your focus on your race is to be negative and talk disgustingly about Democrats, then you're not running on anything but grievance. You're not running on change and making things better and wanting for people to have more money in their pockets. Like, these are the things that people actually care about. So
Right. You don't have a plan like I don't hear you boasting about your plan. You just boasting about the bad plan, in your opinion, of the Democrats, but you're not presenting your plan. And I don't like that because I just see them as very nihilistic, because it's just tearing something down because you don't like it, but you don't have anything else really to put in its place. And what happens when people do that is just kind of like what we just did in Iran, or with most of the regime changes. Like, these people are awful. We go in there and we tear it down, but we don't have a plan to immediately plug into place. And guess what? Something awful always fills the void.
Exactly.
And that is my concern with these leftists who want to just, move all of the Democrats out, either because of their age or they're Black or identity, for whatever reason, but they really don't have a plan. Like, new ain't always better,
About that. No, the thing is, I want to support people who actually have good ideas, right? While some of the ideas that maybe some of these folks are coming out with are a little bit far-fetched, but maybe that signals to me that maybe we need to open
the discussion for it.
Think about, okay, would this actually benefit people? Like, people were fighting about, Mom Donnie was saying he wanted to open the supermarkets in New York, like 5 and 1 in each borough, like a place where they can get discounted things. And that's cheaper than your average supermarket. And this was what he wanted to open. And people were upset about that. And I'm like, they're like, that's socialism, da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that is actually kind of a decent idea. Maybe it could work. I don't know how many people will show up, but it's a good idea. And then I think part of it too is like being pragmatic, right? Because
there you go.
That's the hard part, right? People were like, his whole thing was to tax the rich. Okay, but maybe you can't get the tax breaks, the tax cuts that you want, or the tax increases that you want, but maybe you can do it incrementally. And people don't like that word incremental.
Ooh, they don't like incrementalism, which is how we've always gained rights and been the moral arc of justice in this country. And they don't like harm reduction. Can you imagine? Like, they just want, like, change it just like that.
Yeah,
we don't want to,
it's just that simple to just make changes. It's not,
government doesn't move like that. Like, your car don't even move like that. You just can't just, change on the dime with some stuff.
I was just in a dealership, and let me tell you, I think sometimes that I must have like politics written on my face, because I was minding my business. I was not bothering anybody. I was sitting on my phone, and this man, but he's a Black man, he comes up to me, and he with his iPad, and he's like, tell me what you think about this house. And I'm like, okay, random Black man to ask me this. But he was like, he was like, what do you think about it? And I said, oh, it's beautiful. He said, I'm getting up out of here. And I said, getting up out of here and going where? He's like, oh, I was like, that looks like Florida. He's like, yeah, I'm going to Florida. He's like, I'm sick of the fees, and I'm sick of living here, and I'm ready to go. He's like, I can't stand our governor. And he just went off. Okay. And so I had to literally give this man a civics lesson in the dealer.
Random Black man.
I got it. And he's an older Black man too. So, I was going to be respectful of my elders.
Of course.
I'm like, you do realize that Wes Moore does not make laws he signs them, but he doesn't make the laws in this.
And he just manages and orchestrates.
I'm like, you need to contact your state senator and your delegate if you're upset about this. I said, because they were the ones who raised those fees. Yes, he signed off on it, but they were the ones who raised it. I said, so you might want to hold them accountable for the fact that things have gone up. And then, girl, he started talking to me about tampons in men's bathroom. And I just was like,
so
okay.
You think he was doing the trans thing, like the women?
He was like, I don't understand why there needs to be tampons in men's bathrooms, even at the Orioles game or at the Ravens game or in schools. And listen, I'm not going to argue you down about this, because this is not this in a dealership. I was like, sir, I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with you, but hear me out. Let's change the subject, because I'm not talking about this. Like I can school you on civics. I'm not schooling you on things that.
Because that really is more inherent in people's
Yeah,
beliefs in
that's
this
how
kind of
you
religious
let to
belief.
know that you are not like it's one thing to be upset about a fee, and I understand they are high. They did go higher. I get it. When you start talking about things that are within you that you are bigoted, I don't know you like that. And I'm not sitting here trying to change your mind about your
Mhm.
own bigotry because honestly, I could care less if there's tampons in the bathroom. Like that doesn't bother me as a human.
Yeah.
If you don't,
If
if
you
you
don't need them, don't worry about it.
you saw it in the bathroom and it was sitting right there, you're gonna be mad because you saw tampons in the bathroom, or you're just mad to be mad because it seems like you're just mad to be mad. So then he finally changed the subject after I just was giving him the side eye, and then we started talking about something else. But I couldn't believe that he was just sitting there talking to me. Oh, and
Wow.
then he was like, "I'm moving to Florida," and I said, "Well, you do know that if you live in Florida, that there are things that you will not be able to access like you do in Maryland, because in Maryland we have great health care here. I mean, we have a John Hopkins is a wonderful system that many people utilize here. It's not just a
Yeah.
hospital. I mean, they have a whole
It's
health.
it's right. It's a teaching hospital
I
that,
had come from John Hopkins in the morning because I had to get a mammogram, and I'm
my
like,
old doctor was from John Hopkins, and I love it.
so I said, these are things that you would sacrifice if you go to Florida. You also may pay more in home insurance. So the fees that you're complaining about will get offset by the fact that you have to pay way, way more. He's like, oh, but if you live by the water, I said, no, my grandmother doesn't live by the water, sir. And she has to pay a lot for home insurance. And they have like all these different rules. And so it was just this. I was like, oh my God, I did not come to the dealership to talk about politics. I can never get away from this at all. But this is the world that we live in. So when people say, well, I don't do politics. Well, I didn't want to do politics today sitting there, but politics did me because this man wanted to talk my head off.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, is that people, like I said, they say they don't want to do it, but you still need to be aware of what's going on so you can make informed decisions about your life. Like life changes, like moving. Like there are so many reasons why I wouldn't see Florida as attractive
Me,
place to move. Even, like I said, as a black man, an older black man or whatever, housing insurance, just all sorts of things. There would be, I think, better in other places or whatever. And all of the changes that have taken place have involved political decisions and laws and things being made, so again, that's so funny.
it
But
was
I do that. I have those situations too. Sometimes I don't have to do rideshare anymore to pick up my daughter. But when I did, sometimes it would be like these people starting conversations with me. And I always try to keep it civil or whatever, but be real and provide them with real facts. And a lot of times, I don't know how it will come about or whatever, but I often have these conversations with people who are veterans, and then we realize we have that in common. But just because folks are veterans, they don't all see and feel the same way about, political issues and things like that. And so I can recall several conversations like that, like, dude, please.
and this is why when people are talking about like 2028, I think it was God, what is Dave Weigel? He put out a post and he was like, well, if Westmore was running, then why wouldn't he win? And I'm like, let me just tell you something about people, because apparently you live in a totally different reality than all the rest of us. That everybody loves somebody until they run for higher office. And yes, people in Maryland, they have cooled on Westmore, and I have told Westmore specifically in his face that people are bitching and complaining about these damn fees. And
Mhm.
everything else could be great in this state, but them people have to pay those fees, those car registration fees. They are pissed off, and they will hate you for life because of those fees. And my husband tells me all the time, "Oh, my friends, they're always talking negative about Westmore," and I'm like, "Where is this all coming from?" My mailman was talking bad about Westmore, so I feel like there's also like this pipeline of people that spin
That's
up
the distribution channel.
that I can see the wheels spinning. and people start to become nasty, one, and two, they start to spread lies about a person because one, they're fearful of them, or two, they have been they have been fed that
Right.
information.
Well, the propaganda is real, like and the methods in which they spread these stories. And propaganda is really neither bad nor good. It is how it is being used. But a lot of times, things like that are being used because they are afraid that he will run, and they are trying to, kind of get him out of the field and kind of muddy his name and reputation already.
I
But
mean,
those things happen in states, because Tennessee is one of those states where at one point we had a bunch of fees for registration and all these things, and now like we also had to do like the and your car had to be inspected before you renewed, and that was a fee, and then there was a whole bunch of money associated with that if you didn't pass those things. And so a couple of years ago they did away with that. Fine by me, less money. But then, they increase fees for, like, I have a hybrid. And so now it's almost like doubled my car registration fees. So, I mean, things like this happen.
yeah,
And
and the reason they happen is also you guys
like
want
the governor, usually these things are done by commissions and legislature, because usually some kind of interest group is pushing, or the state actually needs funds or is having a problem in this area. Even though he is the leader,
right.
he's not the one who actually makes it happen. He can have an
Yeah,
opinion about it.
all of those fees were bundled into our budget, right? Because that's how things happen in the local government. I mean, like, well, state government here is that you have a budget every year. States cannot go into, it can't be like the federal government that has a deficit. You can't run a deficit, so you have to make up for the fee, the money, some way, somehow. Trump has put us in a really bad place here because we depend a lot on the federal government. We've had a lot of people who have been laid off. That's less tax money and revenue that's coming into the state. We have a robust education program that we have spent a lot of money on. And so you want good education, or you want and the money from for the car registration stuff goes to the roads. And so the roads are better here than most places. But again, Marylanders are spoiled because they don't go to other places and see how terrible
Yeah.
roads and things are outside of they're in like a cocoon of blue bliss. And this little thing that's a fee is like, we can't stay in Westmore because of it. But these are
Lord, let them come to Tennessee with high grocery taxes. Like we
right.
pay damn near 10% on groceries. That's in addition to, gasoline tax and all these other things. And our roads are shit. And you know what they did? They passed a bill a couple of years ago, and now the work is really just starting to begin. But their idea of improving the roads, their solution was to partner with private companies.
Oh,
So you see the grift, and create choice lanes. You know what that is?
mhm.
Toll lanes. And they're out here in my neighborhood, and we're not happy about it. But we're just going to have to keep working at our local level to get some of these things addressed. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think people take for granted what they have, especially in blue states, because we have so many resources that when you think about like the resources that are in red states, or they try to compare it to Texas, or they try to compare it to Florida. I'm like, Texas has a horrible grid. Okay, you want your power to go out every now and then? No, you don't want that. They're like, well, the energy fees, the cost of energy is too much. And it is granted, we do pay a lot of money in energy. Our electricity bills are higher than most places. But that's not the governor's fault. We have a grid, and the people who own, that's what I was trying to explain to the man. I said, you do realize a lot of this stuff is corporate greed, right? Because he was telling me that his insurance went up. I said, that has nothing to do with Westmore. I said, what does Westmore have to do with that? He's like, well, Pete, well, kid, I could tell he was like on Fox 45 because I know
He had all their talking points, right?
all the Sinclair talking points because they were all there. And he's like, well, my car insurance went up. It went up like thousands of dollars. And I said, well, you do realize that's corporate greed, right? Because when you call to get a new insurance from another company, I am sure they gave you a lesser price. I said, so that gouging in car insurance is not something that people talk about, but it is something that is very real because Nationwide tried to do that to me. I was a customer with them for years, and I got my bill was $5,000 for my policy, and I was like, "What? I'm not paying this." I called Progressive, and I got $2,500. So you were trying to charge me double what I was really supposed to be paying. So you're mad at the governor for that? I'm like, that has to do with these companies. So you need to hold these companies accountable for the fact that they are trying to gouge us. And then he shut up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing because also this regime is bringing in more corporate greed. They are encouraging it because they are grifting themselves, and so it feeds on that. And it's kind of like, the prices went up during COVID because of, the supply chain. They didn't go back down. They went up because of his tariffs. They didn't go back down. They're going up because of, the war that he started with Iran. They won't bring them back down, even though they filed a lawsuit and got relief for the extra money on the tariff. They're not going to, let's see how many of them pass that rebate or refund onto their customers. They won't. We are in an era of greed. And as someone said here, like that divide between the rich and the poor is getting wider and wider, which brings up something. I caught an interview that I think Katie Fang was doing with someone, and there's this PAC or organization called Patriotic Millionaires, and they passed a bill. They literally got it introduced as a bill, and it's about changing the tax structure. And these are people who are actually rich, and they're saying tax us and change the code so that poor people that when people like the poverty rate like $16,000, people should not be charged taxes when they are below the poverty line anyway. And so I'm looking more at that. It caught me totally by surprise, but I mean, I'm like, I guess there are some compassionate millionaires and billionaires. I was reading where one woman, I think Ballmer, and she is the wife of one of these CEOs who co-founded Microsoft, I think, gave a lot of money to NPR to make up for the government difference. And who's the other guy's wife? Bezos' wife, I think, is donated a lot of money. And we have to kind of look for more people like that, and count on people with money, having a conscience and caring. Because I mean, like, for a lot of these companies and rich billionaires, it's like it's never enough. They will take and take and take and take. And my friend was telling me, I know I'm going off on a little tangent, but I was talking to him. He lives in the EU, and we were talking about countries, and he was talking about India and some of the laws there. And like, he was talking about, that gulf between the haves and the have-nots being so wide that it just is one of the few places, and he's traveled the world really, but it's one of the few places that he really doesn't like, because the difference is so stark. It really breaks his heart. Like, you have these great MAGA freeways going by, and literally people living on, the side of the road, like that's where they live. And that, like, for instance, if a car ran over one of the, someone, they would be responsible by law for, taking care of their health care um, so he said that it really is true that like if they ran over someone, they would just back up and make sure they were dead. So they
Wow.
wouldn't have to take care of the healthcare expense.
No, that's scary. I mean, yeah, I mean, people, I just don't think that people understand how rich people are really screwing us over, especially these MAGA rich people. I was listening to, what's the guy's name? I call him the ventriloquist dummy. Um, Bessent, the president.
Oh God, Scott Best.
He,
He's an asshole.
his face barely even moves. And so when I hear him talk, it's like, oh, affordability, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be great. I'm like, no, people are actually struggling. People who have money, who were okay the last couple of years, are scaling back because they see the cost of things are getting higher and higher. I mean, gas today was 3.95. So I guess because there was a deal with Israel and Lebanon, and now the strait is open, I guess the price of gas has gone down. So the gas has gone down. But even gas, I mean, I put gas in my tank the other day. It was like 70 something dollars. And I'm just like, I looked at my account. I was like, oh, I was balling. Next thing you know, I'm looking at my account like, damn, this thing got
And it's all gone to gas.
like $75 for gas is just crazy to me. I was paying like maybe 50 something, a couple weeks ago. So I just think people are not, especially rich people, they're gonna try to suck us dry. And they are going to get theirs. But what are we getting in return? And that, again, we are constantly talking about affordability and how do we make things better. And that's what I want to hear from candidates. Was that I'm listening to Javier Becerra, who's talking about these things in his race. I hear Wes Moore talking about it. I think Tanya asked how's Wes Moore doing. He's going to get reelected easily. The turnout might be terrible because people are so upset with him.
Man.
He will win easily because he's running against a Nazi. I mean, this is just the state of affairs in Maryland. He has no one running against him, and the Republicans have a crazy Nazi on that side. So who had ran against him in 2022, and now it's a rematch, which would be he's going to win like over 20 points, right? He's going to win big, but doesn't reflect kind of like people's feelings or sentiments of how people feel in this state. And I think that's where at the end of the day, people vote with their pocket. They vote on how they're feeling at the moment. And we talk about 2028, and in 2024, people were feeling as though they were not doing so well economically, and they wanted to go back to this era that was non-existent before COVID, that they thought was so grand, and Trump was going to save them, even though COVID happened under his watch. And people seem to have forgotten that. But then
because the past always seems to be so angelic and wonderful,
Wasn't the case. But thanks, guys, for trying to perpetuate some weird situation that never happened back then, because COVID was a disaster, and then we had to recover from COVID. But I think when people are asking about like Vice President Harris, and they're like, is she going to run again? Is she not going to run again? I think she did a couple of things this like past couple of weeks, and people were asking like, is she going to run? And she's like, I think it was the NAN event.
Yes.
And she was like, I might. I mean, she's so funny because she's so like whatever. She's like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll run. But I mean, everything leads to the fact that she likely will run. But then you have people saying, well, she shouldn't run, and I don't know why she's running. Well, maybe because she didn't get to run a real race in 2024, she feels like, okay, well, maybe I can. And you know what? That's the purpose of a primary, right?
They can't whine that she didn't get primary. There wasn't a primary. I hope she does. And it seems like, like you said, all the things that she's doing points to her doing that. And I love it. I feel like, the book was good, so she could get that kind of stuff off of her chest. And I feel like what she's doing now is like a listening tour, basically. I mean, she's promoting the book, but she's out here mingling with people and hearing from them and what their concerns are. And I think every candidate, no matter what level of office you're running from, if you're running for governor, city council. You need to listen to the people that you're going to represent. I feel like what she had to rely on was Biden's strategists and these consultants and people. And now she will have her own idea of what people think and what is on people's minds and what they want addressed. And she can create her own team. So I hope she does. And I hope enough people can put aside their misogyny, and their racism to get off their ass. And I mean, they may not have a choice because this man is not doing anything to help this country. It is getting worse every day, that he is in office. He is not making things better. And maybe racists, bigots, and so forth can put a little bit of that aside for their own selfish reasons to vote for her, if she does run.
No, I totally agree. I hate the way people talk about her because you do see a lot of the misogyny just kind of seeping through. You see the racism. She hasn't even announced she's running, and people are like, she shouldn't run. She should not be the nominee. Why is she running again? She lost. Okay. You know how many other
But they don't say that about Bernie.
But they don't think about Bernie. Pete is likely going to run. They didn't say that about him. They didn't say there's all these people that have run for president before and also have lost. But let's, put this on her. I think it's unfair. I always said from the beginning when we were going through that the year before July, when they were trying to get Biden out, I always said that this is a setup for her, because once you fail at running for president and get to a general election type situation, not just the primary, that people have negative views on you. And unfortunately, she was and is and has been set up to fail, but that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve another chance. And I just hate that people are so negative about the opportunity that she may have to be able to run. I want to hear her out. I want to hear how she's going to run different. I want to hear what her agenda will be, because we didn't even get to really understand, except for her economic agenda, what she was truly running for. And we knew because we were people that followed her. We follow politics, but what is new Kamala? I'm gonna call her new Kamala. What is new Kamala gonna?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree with all of those things, and I think that at the heart of the policies and the platform that she has are things that are good for people, like She Cares. And I mean, just the platform that she had then, trying to help young people get housing. And I think she is someone who listens to a vast demographic, like, it's not just Democrat. She's trying to, she understands she's going to be governing a country with a lot of different people, and she tries to listen to those. And she's a lawyer. She is really good at using her critical skills, I think, to try to address the issues of concern for everyone. And I want to see her do that on her own terms, because I feel like you said, it was a bit of a setup. But I mean, Joe Biden ran how many times? 3?
He won on his third time, so maybe third time's a charm. Who knows? But I just feel like people discounting her, just saying, don't run, we don't want you, all of that stuff. Let her run a race. If she loses the primary, she loses the primary. I rather her try and run. I mean, this will be the second time she's running for well, the first time when she ran in the primary, the second time that she was thrown into the race, and then now will be her opportunity. So I don't know. I think she has great ideas. Not everybody wants to listen to them, and we will see what happens. But I'm just so over social media and everybody who's talking.
Oh yeah, me too. I have unplugged a lot, and I just want to, as we start to wrap up, I just want to thank everyone. We are expanding our reach. I see a lot of folks listening to us on Spoutable. Got listeners and commenters over here on YouTube, and you guys forgive me for not reading or responding to a lot of the comments. I'm trying to get better. I see some of them, but I still have to get my eye appointment so I can I can see better. I got all these monitors up that I'm looking at, but we certainly appreciate your involvement in the chat and your support of us. And I hope if you're not already following us or subscribing to our channels, Tiff is on YouTube and she's on Substack and, all the other, TikTok and Blue Sky and X as Candidly Tiff. And so please follow her there, subscribe to her Substack, subscribe to my Substack. I'm on all except the Meta ones. I don't do, I'm Blue Sky, Spoutable, X, and Substack. So please subscribe. We try to come together every 2 weeks to just kind of have this political chat and chop it up about various different things, because I think it's important that we have some Black woman reality and pragmatism in all the conversations that are going on.
Amen. And listen, it's like 2 weeks go by and it's just so much that's happening. It's out of control. I wrote the other day on Twitter, I said, I just want like a few days of peace. Like just a few days. That I have been enjoying. I'm gonna tell you something that I have been enjoying all week. A little bit of joy here is Pope Leo shady.
Oh, wait.
Every day. He was in a couple of different places in Africa. I think he was in Cameroon. Algeria. And the photos of him being there, there was a picture. There was a little girl who had come up to him and a little Black girl, she was hugging him and she was like so excited to meet him. And I just think that with everything that's going on, we need someone to be the voice of reason. And I think that's what Pope Leo is trying to be, the voice of reason, using his, spiritual guidance to be able to kind of bring people together to say, no, we shouldn't be in a war. We should not be doing the things that we're doing. He sees the poison that is in DC and Trump is attacking him. And I'm like, does Trump understand who he's attacking? Like the Catholic Church, there are many, many members of the Catholic Church worldwide, right? So you're now pissing people off. You have also people like me who are non-practicing Catholics, but also grew up in the Catholic Church. So culturally, I am still Catholic in that respect because that's the way that I was taught from birth, right? My mom, Catholic, that's how she raised us. And so when I see him talking, I'm like, it's like, it almost feels like divine that the Catholic Church put an American in place to be the Pope almost. And it felt like that at the moment. This was kind of like an anti-Trump, not necessarily because he's a wonderful man and he's a wonderful father. But I think when you hear him speak and the words that he's using, it kind of lends to the fact that we are in a place where we literally, as I always say, have a demon in the White House. And he is kind of grounding us to say, listen, we have to be faithful. We have to kind of come together, and not in a pushy kind of way. Because I think a lot of Christianity is like, especially evangelicalism is like pushy. It's just like, use your morals, use your common sense. We need to come together as people. We need community. Like all of these things are just kind of principles, whether you're religious or not, or even atheists, people who are atheists that are on my feed. And as I'm posting stuff, they're like, I'm an atheist, but I actually like this post, because morality is not about religion. Morality is about who you are, and humanity is as well. As a human, as a person who lives on this earth, you should want better than what we are getting right now. And then we also saw last week with the astronauts that were out in space. And I think all of those things coming together, because they were on the outside looking in, and we were able to see their humanity while they were out in space. And we were able to see them live and the joy that they had and how they were delivering that message to us and what they were seeing. And then them coming back, them coming back to Earth. in the way that they did, it was really touching. Like on a spiritual level, it was like really touching to know that they were in a place that is so dark, like the outside of the earth, and we are one
Just
small
one.
thing in the universe. So all of those things put together is just, it makes me think a lot about, morals and humanity and the universe and how we all are intertwined and interconnected. And then the fact that we will have to come together as a community, whether you're talking politics, in voting, or in how we communicate with one another. We all have to come together in some kind of way to make this stop. This is not sustainable, the way that we are constantly living with this crazy man messaging and saying things in the middle of the night that are absurd.
Right. I am so glad that you brought that up because I agree with all those things that you said. That to me is divine timing. And interestingly enough, my daughter just got baptized into the Catholic Church this Easter. Yeah, and my daughter was confirmed. So I do feel like that is kind of divine timing. That they have a pope who is American, who understands what is going on and who has a moral core and center, because part of the agenda that this administration is trying to carry out is rooted in white supremacy and Christian nationalism, which to me is not religion. It's just white supremacy and racism with a veil of religiosity on top to sell it to people. And this is a man who has spent his life in the community, caring for others in South America and other places, which, this administration, of course, has been assaulting, the Latin countries and people and stuff. So I do think that it is important because, like, we're just humans, whether or not you believe in a higher power or not, I just, believe that sometimes the world has a way of balancing things. Like, we're being assaulted by all these things, but at the same time, like you said, we have people going to space, and I thought it was wonderful. And the difference between the crew that went to the moon the first time and the crew that went this time, I think is also evidence of change and growth. And I turned it on for my granddaughter to watch, and she was on the phone yakking with her friends, and I was like, do you want to see this? And she said no. I said, I'm gonna turn it on anyway. I said, because 40 years from now, you're going to say, my Nana had me watching this. It's going to be meaningful. It's historic, because I was like in grade school when this happened the first time. So when it started actually, when they started actually, breaking through the atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere, I could see her eyes light up and everything. And she stopped her conversation. She was talking to her friends about it. So yes, this is historic. It's meaningful because it also shows that the world is bigger than us.
Exactly. Exactly.
Than us.
Right. It is way bigger than us, and we are just one small piece in the universe, and we are one small piece even on the earth itself, right? Because we are not the only thing that are on this earth. We have so many animals. We have in the water, on the land. There is so many different things that are part of this earth that, again, that we do take for granted because we do think it's all about us, but
exactly.
It's bigger than all of us. And I think that was what brought me joy, because you're right, when they came through the atmosphere, and I'm literally sitting there shaking. I'm like,
yes, I'm like, oh my goodness,
I'm freaking out. I'm like, the parachutes have to drop. One of the parachutes going to drop. Then the first parachutes drop, and I'm like, there's supposed to be 3, but that was like the initial ones. And then after the third ones came out, I was like, okay, I could breathe. And then when they popped in the water, I'm like, they said we have word, they're okay. I'm like, oh my goodness, because I thought about, like, imagine being in that little tiny capsule, coming down to the earth, and you're not even knowing if you're going to live or you're going to die as you're coming through there,
but willing to do it.
but willing to do it for the sake of the future and learning. And
Discovery, yes.
the beauty that there was a woman on there, there was a black man that was on there was a Canadian on there, a man who had lost his wife on there, who has two teenage daughters that I'm sure in his mind he's like, if I don't come back, my two daughters are going to be orphans. Like these are kind of things that people were going through their minds. And I've loved the conversations that they've even had over the last couple of days, kind of just talking about, their feelings of being up there and what they were thinking as they were coming back, and how when they landed, they were laughing and joking and kind of like, we made it kind of thing. And then the people, once they opened the door, and that was like, out of all the things that happened last week, because we were gonna blow up the whole of Iran last week, that kind of like the ending of the week, to see that happen and hear their stories and them talking about, I think one of the stories they talk about, I think it was the woman, she was like, the word crew, like that I didn't really understand what the word crew meant, like we say it, but when you think about it, it really is about community and the fact that we're working together hand in hand. You have to rely on other people, not just themselves, because anything could have gone wrong. You know what I'm saying? You could have had mechanical issues. You could have had things that didn't go exactly the way. They said even when there were things that weren't going exactly the way that they were supposed to, they got it corrected. And that was the beauty of it, as us as people trusting one another, because that was a lot. I mean, it was the way that they were shaking and coming back to the earth and this little tiny thing. I'm like freaking out. But when they landed, I definitely cried, and I was really excited because that was the first good thing that happened. Like, oh my God.
It was. And I think the Pope was good too. It's like, because I feel like it's like, dude, you picked a fight with the wrong person, because, and I feel like too, that was just his petty jealousy, because, the Pope is like, of course, the president is like, in charge of the world's largest economy, superpower, so to speak. But the Pope is more popular. Okay. And the fact that this Pope is an American and is more popular than him, because there are a greater number of Catholic folks in the world, I think that was also why he picked a fight. And I also thought it was hilarious that Rachel Maddow did her little show and rundown how Trump was throwing Vance under the bus in all the places that he used him. I'm telling you.
And Mac just really cannot stand him. And it's so funny to me to watch him just, I mean, well, with the whole, like, we didn't even talk about this, but of course, the Hungarian what is it, prime minister lost his re-election.
Yes, he sent him over there. And I think that's wonderful too, because it gives us hope, because truly Trump and this administration has modeled themselves after Viktor Orban, like him taking a democracy and making it a illiberal democracy, basically an autocracy. And he gave them the playbook. Like, he invited them to Hungary. He was their keynote speaker at several CPACs. So he was very meaningful to this Republican Party, this MAGA party and agenda. And to have JD Vance go cape for him and him lose was glorious.
And then the Iran deal failed. Like, and then he did that. Then this week he was at the that Turning Point USA thing, and
nobody showed up.
It's like embarrassment after the other. But sometimes people need to be humbled, and I doubt that he will be. But I just thought it was funny just to even think that he could potentially be humbled by it. But I know he won't be. I am laughing at him like he's a joke to me.
Right. And the fact that he has a book coming out about his conversion to Catholicism, and his boss puts him in a situation where now he's fighting with the Pope.
Yeah, and there's as more people I've seen, there's now this term called cradle Catholic. So I've never even heard this term before. So this is like a new thing that I guess you're born into Catholicism versus converting into Catholicism. You have the fights between, not fights, but people talking about people that went to Catholic school versus people that didn't go to Catholic school, but then I went to Sunday school. And it's just hilarious to me that Catholicism to me was like, it was there, but a lot of people drifted away from Catholicism because of MAGA.
Yeah.
And like even my mom, like I said, I grew up Catholic. My mom is Catholic, but she drifted away from the church because she felt like the church was not living in reality. She's like, the way, especially the fact that there's a ton of people on the Supreme Court who are Catholics,
Mm-hmm.
her off because she's like, I don't understand what's happening. And so I was away from the church way before that. But I think people are starting to feel like, okay, well, maybe there is hope for the church because of Pope Leo. I don't necessarily go that far. I just think that I think that he is understanding. He's lived a life where he has seen poverty. He's lived a life where he understands real people.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand real people, whether you're a pope or you're a politician or you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or you're just a person that works at McDonald's, you
You're
understand.
humanitarian. You have an aspect of care and concern for your fellow human beings, for humanity. And I think that we should bring humanity back because they're teaching that empathy is a sin, which is why you have all these awful acting folks, and it being encouraged and applauded. We just need to get back to a place where that stuff is treated as being awful and that humanity is cool again. Having a sense of humanity is cool again.
Exactly. Well, it was great talking to you.
Same. And we appreciate everyone joining us in the chat, and we'll be back in another couple of weeks. And I know that, we're going to miss the next 2 weeks. Are you traveling? Because I know you're going on vacation. I can't
Next
remember.
week, I'll be gone next week, but I'll be back for our next show.
Okay, so we'll be back here in 2 weeks again. And thank you guys for joining us. We hope you will join us again soon. And Tiff, I'm wishing you great travels this weekend, and everyone have a wonderful weekend. And, lean into intentional joy. There is a lot of crazy stuff going on, but we need to keep our sanity and we need to cultivate and maintain joy because they're trying to kill us. But, joy, I think, is a wonderful, quiet act of resistance. So thanks again, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.